Hello, welcome back to Game Programming with Unity. It's sad for me to tell you that we've reached the point when the fun time stops. That's right, I'm sorry to announce that in every game developer's lifetime, he's going to have to come across a part of the puzzle that's incredibly important, right? And incredibly vital to creating games and to managing data, but is also incredibly boring and dry. And we've reached that part right now. It's not exciting like physics. It's not dynamic like audio, it's not cool like animation, it's pretty much boring old dry programming stuff. And I'm talking about collections. Alright, collection. Collection is a list of stuff. And that list of stuff is going to have a type, right? And we're going to give a list of types, values, which can be game objects, or can be integers, or can be floats. And we're going to pack them into this list so that we can iteratively do stuff to them, right? We can do one thing to multiple objects at once as long as they are contained into this list. Or we can sort those lists, or arrays is what we're also calling them. There are different types of collections. One is an array, which we're going to focus on right now, and one is a list, which we're going to get to in the next segment. So here in section 6, we're in intermediate scripting, and we're talking about collections. So what I'm going to do is show you a little bit about the first type of collection I want to talk about, which is an array. Now, an array is a list of objects, and most of you have done some object-oriented programming before, and pretty much can't escape the need for arrays and everything. So I'm going to show you how C# it handles these arrays, and how we declare them, all right? So there are 3 different ways to declare an array as a global variable. All right, I'm going to say public int with the brackets, which denotes that it is an array, and I'll call this ints. Now in this one, I have not declared a number of slots for this array. Right? In order to change the number of items this array can contain, I have to give it a number. Now we can do that if it's public inside of the editor. And sometimes this is really, really useful. I don't have to declare it if I don't know it offhand. But it can also be very confusing because if you start making changes to things in code and you want to expand that list of arrays, you're not going to be able to change it because it's going to be overridden with what's inside the editor. I'll show you how those work in a second. Okay, now this second one, I have declared the amount of slots for this array, but not values. Right, so I've declared that there's 5 slots in this array, which means it goes index number. So the index is what slot you're in, starting with 0. All arrays and lists start with 0, just like most computer lists and collections will always start with value of 0. And that's called an index. Now the index of 0, right, is 1. The index of 2 is 2. So index 0 is 0. So if we have this value set here, which I'm incorporating, this is index 0, this is index 1, this is index 2, this is index 3, and this is index 4. However, if you look, how many items does this array hold? 5, right? So the array holds 5 slots, but the first slot is slot 0. So you only count up to index of 4, because there's a 0th index. Alright, so now this brings me to this last array I've declared, which is set the number of slots and the values going into those slots. Now I'm making all these public so that we can see them in our, let's just go ahead and compile that. And let's check out, I have here a game object, and you can open up this lesson 6_01 in your Unity classroom project files. All right, let's look at what it created over here. So here's our variables we created. We created ints, right? And because we did not give that a number of slots, its size is 0. Size is the amount of slots it has, right? So if I said size of 5, it'll automatically allow me to dynamically change this, but only in the editor, not really so in code. So I can change this dynamically as an editor variable, but when I'm in code, I can't just go around changing the slot number around. That's called mutability. And mutability is very limited when it comes to arrays. If we want arrays they're going to be able to change size, we're going to have to use a different type of collection. All right, but most people aren't aware of that because you can change size really easily here in the editor, but that's still got a limited amount of functionality because I can make all these values, but I can't automatically add values programmatically. I can only add values here manually, and that's really tedious if you've got 1,000 values you want to add. All right, so now I can change this to 0. And the changes you make to this in public will override any changes you make to this in code. So it's good to be aware that anything you change here is going to override that code. Okay, now int set number, I have set the number of slots to 5, right? So now we have element 0, slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, and slot 4, which is the 5th slot, right? So it's size 5. Its size will always be 1 greater than the last element in the list or in the array. All right, now our third one here, I created int set values, and you can see the values that I set, and those values happen to correspond with the slot number, but they don't have to. I can make those values anything I want. They are now set up. All right, and that is basically what an array is. Now, I've also here created, for your convenience, what's really going to be important to us for the most part, unless we're doing heavy data crunching, we're really going to be wondering about lists of game objects, right? Because if we have an inventory, your character's got weapons and things, he's got to have an array list. He's got to have a slot where that sword or that shield or that item or that magic potion has to go, right? We got a complex inventory system. We're going to have to use some type of way of categorizing and collecting all these things and being able to access them. So we're going to create places where those game objects go. So now we're going to create a public game object called spheres. Now, once again, if you notice, this does not have values yet. Now, we're going to use this. We're going to dynamically set values into this from the game objects, and we'll do that a little bit later. But you can see that we have nothing in that array because we haven't added anything into it manually, and we haven't set anything into it programmatically. All right, now the same thing, spheres set number. I've got 3 objects, and now it's saying here, here's 3 slots. And now I can actually say, here, let's grab this sphere, drop it in 0. Now I can drag and drop my items. So I can create I can create 3 variables for this array by dragging and dropping. It's pretty convenient for stuff where you only have 2 or 3, and you can drag and drop items from your scene. Once you get a little bit deeper into a game, you're really going to want to start populating these arrays with items in some type of more efficient programmatic way or manner. Over here I can say size 2. And maybe we can throw a couple in here. And obviously this item can exist in multiple arrays at once. Alright, so that is how we approach creating, declaring, and populating these arrays in the simplest manner we can by simply declaring them as variables and then choosing the values in the editor. As long as they're public here, we can edit those values. Now, if we want to do something a lot more fancy, then we're going to have to generate those arrays based on other things.